When you go to Michigan, the tradition of this university and its football program is huge, and it's imprinted in your brain from the time you walk in the door. You're playing for the University of Michigan Wolverines, just as Tom Harmon did, just as Willie Heston did, the guy like Yost who coached back in the turn of the century.
It's sacred ground when you step into the big house and you know that you're playing on the backs of men that have come before you, and you're representing men that will come afterwards.
One thing that was told to me is that first, you represent this fine university. Second, you represent this great program. Third, you represent the name on your back. Any mark on any of those is unacceptable.
Michigan is the winningest football program in college football history. And when you have that tradition, people expect you to win. They expect big things out of you.
By 1997, the burden of expectation seemed to be too much for the shoulders of Michigan men.
Touchdown! Caught by Westbrook for a touchdown!
In 1995, head coach Gary Moeller, heir to the legacy of Bo Schembechler and winner of 3 Big Ten titles, fell suddenly from grace after an embarrassing public intoxication incident.
They were considered the gold standard. Even if they underachieved on the field, off the field, they conveyed this sense of regalness about them, that to have a head coach publicly embarrass himself in that way, that's unspeakable.
Moeller was forced out. His replacement, longtime Wolverines assistant Lloyd Carr.
I would not be honest if I didn't say that we are wounded and we have great pain. But I would say to all of you, don't shed any tears for us. We don't want your tears. Don't feel sorry for us. We don't want your sorrow.
When I became the interim coach, I tried to take it one day at a time. We just stayed together, and each of us committed to do our very, very best that we could have a season that when it was over, we could stand tall.
As 1997 dawned, Carr had yet to produce that season. 2 straight 4-loss campaigns and 4 consecutive 4-loss seasons overall placed the Wolverines program at a crossroads.
It was mediocre Michigan. That's what the country thought about Michigan at that point, that the M stood for mediocre.
I think there may have been some question about Lloyd Carr and if he really could get this program to the next level, back to where Bo Schembechler had him.
I came in '93, 5 years previous, they had been to the Rose Bowl. It's just the rite of passage. And then all of a sudden, my freshman through 4th year, we don't go.
I understood absolutely that this was a big year as far as Michigan football and as far as being the head coach here. I was aware of the situation.
If you take a look at the 97 season, it really didn't add up as a national championship year. The toughest schedule in the nation. We had no buys.
He separated himself from any other coach, frankly, that I've ever had in the area of inspiring his players.
They met a group of men from Michigan.
And to inspire his players, he used metaphors.
He was a little bit different than most football coaches, very cerebral. Lloyd is a big reader, and he read the book about climbing Everest, and he uses it as a metaphor for the season.
The book, John Krakauer's Into Thin Air, inspired Carr to invite Lou Kosicki, one of the men who challenged Everest with the author, to speak to the team.
He had a wonderful message for a group of young college kids about what it takes to climb the highest mountain. There's a lot of similarities between climbing the highest mountain in the world and climbing the highest mountain in college football.
As you go further and further up that mountain, the oxygen levels get lower and lower, so you need more concentration and more concentration. And that's, that was really what I remembered from that metaphor, was every week it's going to get a little more dangerous. Every week there's going to be a little bit more on the line. Life or death on Mount Everest, for us, winning a national championship.
Carr went a step further, giving each player a pickaxe to reinforce the metaphor of the climb.
The pickaxes that we gave symbolized the idea that to get to the top of this mountain, every guy had to pull his own weight.
For 1 year, there was a group of guys who decided that they were going to play for Michigan. The way they worked, the way they prepared from that whole spring, summer, and the fall. I don't know if I've seen a group do it that way.
The first meeting of the year, myself and Ben Huff, we had a little disagreement about a seat in the front row where seniors normally sit.
Chris was a fourth-year senior, Ben was a fifth-year senior, and neither guy would budge. I mean, that's how serious leadership was around this place.
After that event happened between myself and Ben Huff, we kind of decided as seniors, everybody needs to put their differences aside, and we need to come together.
At the start of the 1997 season, head coach Lloyd Carr asked the 118th edition of the Michigan football team to create a list of goals.
Win in the big house, go to the Rose Bowl, total defense, total offense. So we had all this confusion about a 2-3 hour meeting just writing our goals down.
They could not seem to come to an agreement, so we shut the meeting down. Then we come back the next day. Finally, Charles Woodson, who didn't say a lot, but when he did, he had everyone's attention.
Eventually, I stood up and I said, how about we just win? You know, if you go out there and you just win, everything else takes care of itself.
And then the air left the room. And then one guy said, well, what if we don't win a game? Then all of our goals, everything else we worked for, he said, it's a mentality. If you think we're going to lose, then we've lost already.
What that really meant was that you win your individual battles, you practice hard, you feel good after a practice that you've won that particular day at practice. All of that, to me, just, culminated into just win. That kind of became our motto for that season.
Woodson was the kind of guy, if he came to practice and the guy across from him on offense wasn't hustling, wasn't trying to beat him, he'd call him out.
An All-American cornerback in 1996 as a sophomore, Woodson had designs on expanding his role during his junior season.
Charles and I talked a lot. He said, Ray, I need the ball. I need the football. I'm going to play offense. I don't care. He said, I'll play every down if I have to, whatever it takes to win.
The toughest part for me was that you had to maintain what you primarily did, and that was defense. And Coach Carr made that very clear to me. He said, we're going to play you on offense, but if any part of your defensive game slips, then I'm taking you off. No questions asked.
It's Woodson. Touchdown, Michigan.
You started to learn the patterns and the nuances. Charles had all the ability in the world, but he had to learn that process of it, and he very quickly picked that up because he's one of the smartest football players that I've ever been around.
Hessel will drop back to throw, has good protection, throwing deep down the left sideline. Woodson in coverage, picks it off at the Michigan 45-yard line.
This defense was remarkable, and a lot of it had to do with Charles Woodson in the back.
He was the single best athlete I've ever seen in college football, period. He is the only player I've ever seen on any team where you're more excited to see the defense take the field than the offense.
Wood was a real instinctive but studied the game football player, and he was going to take care of half the field.
When the Wolverines traveled to East Lansing in late October, Woodson went from being merely great to a national phenomenon.
Michigan State, we have a huge media audience, and he makes an interception that is second to none.
Now has Mazzell in his face, throws, and Unbelievable! Made a spectacular interception. What a grab by Woodson.
I just stuck my hand out, and it feels like that ball just stuck to my glove. And I came down, got the foot in, and understood that I really made a spectacular play.
The thing about that play is it represents confidence, supreme confidence. Charles Woodson looks up and says, I can fly. I'm going to get that ball. That's my football. That's the thing that separated Charles. It wasn't athleticism. It was his mentality.
Myself and other guys in the press box just staring at each other. Goes, do you believe what you just saw? And that was the first day that people were saying that Charles Woodson might be a Heisman Trophy candidate.
Talk about a great comeback story. Talk about a kid that just would not be beaten. That's Brian Griese.
Brian Griese had faced adversity from a young age. He lost his mother at the age of 12. but he found support from a father famous on the football field and in the broadcast booth.
Everybody thinks of my father as a Hall of Fame quarterback, but what we went through, I consider him a Hall of Fame father, first and foremost. He was there for me. I had to be there for him.
We'd just be there all by ourselves on the weekend, taking care of each other. So this went on for, I don't know, a year, 2 years, and finally he came up to me one day and he says, Dad, he says, you need to find yourself a friend.
While Bob would meet and later marry his second wife, Shay, Brian contemplated his next move after finishing his football career at Miami's Christopher Columbus High, with a possibility of following in his father's footsteps at Purdue.
He said, Purdue has probably done the best job of all, recruiting me. But I just can't go there. He says, I'd be compared to you every day, every week, every year. And he said, well, what about Michigan?
I wasn't the biggest guy, didn't have the strongest arm. So my number one criteria for the school I was going to choose was, what kind of education can I get? What kind of job can I get after I'm done? And Michigan was the school that gave me the best education.
So I sent them the tapes, and they said, yeah. I said, we're really interested. We'd love to have him walk on.
Brian received his scholarship in 1993, and he started 9 games in 1995. But his future at Michigan stalled after he broke a bar window the following spring.
Michigan likes to keep those episodes out of the public light as much as possible, but that became impossible with Greasy.
I had to sit out in the spring, which didn't allow me the opportunity to compete to play in '96. And that whole year was my penance.
Brian took it on himself to work out and play. Every time the team was doing something, he did something, but it was on his own.
Greasy took over for the injured Scott Dreisbach and led Michigan to an upset road win over Ohio State in 1996.
Touchdown, Michigan!
But after losing the Outback Bowl to Alabama, Greasy faced a decision: leave with his degree and start his life after Michigan, or come back for his final season of eligibility and return to the 1997 team.
I had gotten a scholarship to go get my postgraduate degree. I was going to go to George Washington University, get my master's in public policy. And my brother, he said, you know, you got the rest of your life to go to work or go get your graduate degree. Why don't you just take 6 months and dedicate yourself 115% and give it a shot and see what happens. My life changed on that decision, but it wasn't just the decision being made, it was the follow-up on that decision and dedicating myself to getting ready for that season and to getting ready to give it everything that I had. And it started that next morning.
When Greasy returned, he faced competition not only from Dreisbach, but also from sophomore Tom Brady.
Of the 3 of those guys, I was definitely the one with the least amount of tools in my tool belt from a talent standpoint. Scott was a very talented player. You know, he could run faster than I could. He could throw the ball harder than I could.
Brian was older, and Brian had a great camp, but Tommy had a great camp. And that motivated Tommy, and I think if you go back and talk to Tommy about that, that really helped him be the guy who he is today.
It was closer than what people think, and I think we could have won ball games with Scott Dreisbach or even Brady. But Brian set himself apart because I think he was battle-tested.
By June or July, I saw what I was looking for. So I called him in. I said, look, this job is yours.
With Brian entrenched in the starting lineup, Bob Greasy faced the challenge of describing his son's exploits from the broadcast booth.
There was a point where the network wouldn't let my dad announce the games. And I said, you know, what a missed opportunity. I think people would be genuinely interested in how a father would have a take on his son in a high-pressure situation.
Ball hits the elbow of the running back. It's Boyd. Quarterback needs to get it down below there.
I said, Brian, when you do in your games, it's going to be good news and bad news. The good news is your dad's going to get to see you play. I said, the bad news is that analyst in the booth is not going to give you a fair shake.
And the last time Brian Greasy ran that far, his dad was stationed in on the stick.
The best part of him doing our games 6 times was I got to have dinner with him and see him. You know, because everybody else has parents that come for the games. Well, my mom was gone and my dad was working college football. So I think there was God working in some strange ways to get him assigned to our games.
Greasy back to throw. Running up the pocket, throwing into the end zone. Caught! Touchdown, Russell Shaw!
In 1997, Brian threw 17 touchdown passes and just 6 interceptions. while completing nearly 63% of his passes. Good enough for all Big Ten honors.
Brian was the epitome of cool. He was our leader. And I think everybody had the utmost confidence in Greasy that we were going to take this thing all the way. We had the quarterback to do it.
As the 1997 season began, the Michigan defense was jolted by two key injuries.
Ben Huff developed himself into an all Big Ten caliber defensive lineman. And he got hurt on the last scrimmage before the regular season started. It was just a heartbreaking loss.
We decided we were going to rally around him and we were going to play for Ben. A month later, playing Indiana in the fourth game, Eric Mays, first series, knee blows. I mean, his story was amazing. Walk on, turn captain.
He was a guy that, his teammates voted captain for a reason because of how he handled his business on and off the field. He became a little bit of an inspiration also.
The offense faced its own challenges. First and foremost, meshing in new additions to the offensive line.
We brought Terry Malone on as the offensive line coach. Malone had to go in and ask for defensive players to play the offensive line. That's how Steve Hutchinson and Chris Zeman got on the offensive line.
We knew they were talented and they were tough. We had an offensive line that you would die for. John Jansen, Backus, and Hutchinson, and Adamy, and Brandt. I don't know if there's a better line anywhere than that one.
Zach Adamy, Steve Hutchinson, and John Jansen were named first-team All-Big Ten in 1997 and were the building blocks of an offense that preferred substance over style.
We were one of the most efficient teams in the history of Michigan on third down. And that was really what separated us.
We were a great running team, and we had a great offensive line. So you're going to bring 8 in the box. And if you're going to bring 8 in the box, you're susceptible to the play action. That's how good of a run game we had. And those safeties had to come up there and respect our run. And we would sometimes be shocked, like, gosh, he fell for it again.
Glenn Steele led the nation's stingiest defense that allowed only 9.5 points a game and held teams scoreless in the fourth quarter all the way into November.
Glenn Steele, every week for 12 weeks, he'd say to me before we were going up to dinner, "Hey, Coach, get a good night's sleep. Nothing to worry about." And he was right.
Coach Carr would come in and be like, "Here, 6'6", 330 pounds, All-American, coming at you, and you got him all day." Because at that point, they would really put me on the best of their offensive linemen and try to just wear him down.
You kind of have a cockiness to you, as a defense. I think there was a confidence that we all had, and they played that way.
Paulus will give it to the deep man. Jensen cutting it back up the middle. He's not going to have the first down. Michigan swarms him right at the line of scrimmage. They'll take over on downs.
After running off 5 straight wins to open the season, Michigan rose to number 5 in the nation and welcomed Iowa to the Big House. With the Wolverines trailing by 7 and just 1 play left in the first half, Tim Dwight sent Michigan to the locker room trailing by 14.
We were walking up that tunnel, and that's a big tunnel, as you know, and we're thinking we're going to get screened. That coach is going to, cuss at us. He was calm.
He didn't yell. He said, "Listen, you got us into this mess. Now, you need to get us out of it." And I said, "I got you, Coach."
Greasy dropping to throw, gets pressure, steps up in the pocket, fires in the end zone, touchdown, Russell Shaw!
And this is what defined Brian Greasy's season that year. He drove that team down the field, made a couple of very nice plays, and that was one of those games where Michigan had to survive more so than win.
Greasy calling the signals, turns, fakes to Thomas, rolls right, has a man in the end zone, touchdown, Jeremy Toomer!
I just remember the poise and the calmness that everyone had on that sideline and just saying, hey, don't worry about it. We're going to win the game.
On the run, the pass away, intercepted by Sam Storrs! Michigan will win the football game!
Takes character, takes determination, takes resolve. And that's what you showed today. And you showed the kind of unity, the kind of togetherness that only the great teams have.
3 weeks later, Michigan visited Penn State, and what was supposed to be a fierce battle between 2 top 5 teams became a statement game for the Wolverines.
They're ranked number 2, Michigan's ranked number 4. They're both undefeated. This is supposed to be the knockdown, drag-out, heavyweight, 15-round title fight. It was over in the first round.
It started on the first series of the game where Glenn Steele wreaked havoc. They punted the ball, and our offense, our defense, every phase, we dominated that game.
When Dadrian Taylor put his face underneath that tight end's chin, that hit symbolized how serious we were going to play football. I'm glad Dadrian is healthy and he's okay, and he recovered from that injury. But I think that Penn State game let the world know we were serious.
When that game was over, I think everyone said, hey, look, we got a chance to do this thing, and it's up to us to go finish it.
Following the blowout of Penn State, the 1997 Wolverines moved to 9-0 and number 1 in the AP poll. Next up, a trip to Wisconsin.
We didn't know if Ron Dane was going to play. When we took the field defensively and saw that they had Eddie Faulkner, freshman running back, in there starting, we laughed. We looked at the sideline, looked right at Ron Dane and said, get out here and play, baby. What you scared of? Come see us. You don't want none of this. He turned his back and walked away.
That was probably the biggest mountain that this team had to climb on the road, and they were pretty methodical in that game. They just took care of business.
With a 26-16 win at Camp Randall, only one game remained between the Wolverines and their first Big Ten championship in 5 years. The game.
The Ohio game, it's going to be in your head, and it should be. I would sit here and be lying if I didn't say it was pure hatred when you go out there on the field.
In the past few years, it was Ohio State with the unbeaten team chance to win a national championship, and Michigan had upset them. So now Ohio State has the opportunity to do that to Michigan.
The 4th-ranked Buckeyes came in talking, led by all-conference wide receiver David Boston.
A reporter, of course, says, hey, what do you think about David Boston's comments? He says if Ohio State is clicking, they'll beat Michigan by 2 touchdowns. So I quickly replied and said, well, we're clicking, we'll beat them by 2 touchdowns.
David Boston came on his visit to Michigan talking trash when he was in high school. That's where it started. He said, I'm going to Ohio State. I just wanted to come see your campus, and I wanted to come tell Charles Woodson, I can't wait to score touchdowns on you.
The seniors will be introduced individually, playing their last home game against Ohio State with everything on the line.
When we were warming up at the 50-yard line, I looked at Boston and I said, oh, Charles, he's a grown man. This guy's filled out. He's rocked up. What are you going to do? I said, if you need some help, little brother, I got you.
You're just standing there. Now they're fighting.
When Boston and Woodson had the little fisticuffs there, that established the tone of the entire afternoon. That pretty much said, you know what? If you're U of M, we're not taking that crap.
Once the posturing stopped, Charles Woodson delivered.
You can't ask a guy to do anything more. Defense, offense, special teams. And he made 3 huge plays in that game.
Now steps up and fires. Woodson got it on a crossing route. 35, 30, hit from behind by Winfield. Inside the 20 and hauled down at the 16-yard line.
So it was a big pass play early in the game going across the middle. Wish I could have got my feet up because I would have scored. But Antoine Winfield tripped me up and prevented me from scoring, but it put us in scoring position.
Woodson's 37-yard reception led to an Anthony Thomas 1-yard score to put Michigan up 7-0 in the second quarter. After an Ohio State 3-and-out, the Buckeyes went into punt formation. Charles Woodson stood downfield, awaiting immortality.
He told me before he ran out, he said, Ray, I'm taking one back today. He said, if Desmond can do it, I can do it. He said, I'm getting ready to close the door on everybody today. Heisman National Championship. But I'm like, if you return a punt today, we're going to win.
Woodson back, grabs this one on his 23, races to his left, to the 25, puts 2 men, down to his left at the 40, 45, and there he goes! Charles Woodson down the sideline! He's gonna go all the way! Touchdown, Michigan! Saves the Desmond Howard!
That's what I have been looking for all year, is for everything to kind of line up. the way it lined up, and every block was perfect. The other 10 guys on that field did exactly, what you're coached to do, and every block was picked up. I just picked and weaved my way through that initial front, and then it's off to the races.
I think out of all the games that I've played in Michigan Stadium, I've never heard that stadium get that loud when Charles Woodson returned that punt. We couldn't hear anything as the stadium was actually rocking.
The intention was to strike the post. It really was. And I remember getting to the end and I think I was putting my hand up for everybody to wait because I was going to do it. My teammates, they rushed me. So I didn't get a chance to do it.
I make plays, baby. I make plays. That's all to it. They do all the talking. I do the walking, baby.
With the Buckeyes deep inside Michigan territory early in the third quarter, Woodson made yet another play.
Now comes back, fires in them. End zone intercepted by Charles Woodson. Collins off the Heisman. They threw him on the middle.
Quarterback, of course, thought it was open, and then I just streaked underneath him and intercepted the ball. Wish I hadn't slipped because I was coming out of the end zone.
Without Woodson, Michigan loses by 10 or 14. It's pretty rare you can circle the defensive player and say, that's how many points he got us that day.
Now eludes another tackle at the 40. Gets rid of the ball. Intercepted by Weathers. He's back the other way. He's going to go. 10, 5, touchdown, Michigan.
Andre Weathers extended the lead to 20-0 in the third quarter, but the Buckeyes closed to 20-14 behind touchdowns from Boston and Pepe Pearson. As Ohio State tried to mount a winning drive late in the fourth, the Michigan defense stood firm, and the secondary settled the score.
I saw Boston running across the middle, and I was thinking, okay, he was kind of fast. He was kind of pulling away from me. And I said, if I take the right angle, I can get him.
He's not there. They go the other way, and it is incomplete, intended for David Boston in front of Marcus Ray.
And when he landed, I was glad that he wasn't permanently injured, but when the wind was knocked out of him, I stood over top of him like Ali did Sonny Liston. I said, don't you ever talk trash in the big house ever again.
I can never let go of the last 3 minutes, 4 minutes of that game. Glenn Steele was a man.
They still have a chance to go down and score and beat us. And they never made it out that end of the end zone, so that was it.
The Wolverines have to snap the ball one more time. And they will have their perfect regular season at 11-0.
Why did we beat that team? We beat that team because we were the better team. We beat that team because we wanted it more.
Oh, that was one of the best feelings in the world. You see Michigan Stadium, everyone down on that field, it still gives me goosebumps to this day.
Gentlemen, you'll always be able to say that we did it. We went to the summit. We're there. By God, it didn't come easy.
After 5 years of waiting for that moment, the first guys I went to were those fifth-year senior guys. Those were the guys that I sought out because they had been through those 5 years. We had been through it together, and that rose was a little bit sweeter for us.
1997 Big Ten champions, Michigan.
The local news said Marcus Ray hit on David Boston is going to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And I said, what?
I thought it was very fitting for anybody who doubted us, including David Boston.
I think that play represented Michigan football is back.
Two weeks after spearheading Michigan's defeat of Ohio State, Charles Woodson traveled to New York in early December for what he believed to be a supporting role in Tennessee quarterback Peyton Manning's 1997 Heisman campaign.
Before we left the hotel room, I said, do you think you're going to win? He said, I don't think I'm going to win. I want to win. I just don't think they'll vote for me.
I'm sitting there next to Randy Moss, Peyton, and Ryan Leaf is there.
And the winner from Michigan.
And he says, from Michigan. And, I kind of froze, like, did he really just say Michigan?
From Michigan, Charles Woodson.
And I can remember Randy Moss kind of nudged me, like, get up. And my body just kind of went limp, for a second. And then You know, it all hit me like, wow, that really just happened.
I used to always tell everybody when I was younger that I would win the Heisman Trophy. But when I started my defensive days at the University of Michigan, that dream kind of left.
He deserved it. There's no question about that. He may have made 6 plays that just dropped your jaw. All 6 of those plays were integral in Michigan winning a game and remaining undefeated.
With the Heisman Trophy in hand, Charles Woodson and the Wolverines traveled to California to prepare for the Rose Bowl against 8th-ranked Washington State, knowing that a win would ensure their first national championship in 50 years.
Nothing else mattered if we didn't win this game. It wasn't good enough just to get to the Rose Bowl or be Big Ten champions. It was, can we seal the deal? Can we finish this journey?
Every game, you moved a little bit higher on that mountain. We knew if we won this game, we were going to the summit.
While media attention centered on Cougars quarterback and Heisman finalist Ryan Leaf, Brian Griese faced his own challenge, leading an undefeated team to the brink of a championship, just as his father had done with the 1972 Miami Dolphins.
I never called up my dad and said, hey, man, what was it like to be undefeated in 1972? You know, I didn't do that. There's no way I would do that. He would have slapped me through the phone.
I said, no matter what happens in this Rose Bowl game, I said, you guys have had a great year. And he saw through all that. He says, we've had a great year, and we're going to win this game, and we're going to win the national championship.
The field is perfect. So is the weather. Here we go.
The Rose Bowl began inauspiciously for Michigan. A Griese interception led to a Cougar score, and Washington State was driving a second time when Charles Woodson put his stamp on yet another big game.
We went out there, and I remember Ryan said he was going to take his shots at Charles, and I'm like, you know, that's just a wrong guy you want to motivate like that.
Rolling out. Intercepted. Charles Woodson.
When Charles intercepted that pass, he saved the game, and then everyone else stepped up.
Trailing 7-0, Brian Griese shook off 5 years of ups and downs in a matter of 3 passes.
We hadn't thrown the ball down the field deep and been successful throwing the ball deep the whole season. In that game, Brian was on that day.
Blitz coming, but Griese's got time. Deep, right sideline, fires for Streets. He breaks up and he's got it. 10-5, touchdown, Michigan! Ryan Griese hits high Streets for 53 yards over the head of Ray Jackson.
I knew that Ty, if he got single coverage, that he had the speed and the elusiveness to get free down the field, and neither one of their corners really scared us at that point.
Griese rolls out, still got it, lets it go big for Ty Streets.
Throughout the season, I've always said Brian Griese could not throw the ball that deep. That's why they never went downfield. Look at that one.
Don't start that with me now,
You
Lenny.
proved me wrong.
We knew that we were going to do 2 things: take some shots down the field and then be able to control the ball and keep it away from that offense and protect our defense a little bit. But when the shot was there, take it.
Griese bootleg right, firing deep for Tuman. Touchdown, Michigan! Off the play-action fake.
Leading 21-13 early in the 4th quarter, the nation's top-ranked defense looked to put the clamps on Ryan Leaf.
The Rose Bowl was all about stopping the quick receivers that everybody knew Washington State had and getting after Ryan Leaf.
We knew that we wanted to put pressure on Leaf, and we had a pretty big, extensive package. And then we kind of reduced it down as we got closer to the game to let our athletes play.
As the Rose Bowl entered the closing minutes with Michigan clinging to a 5-point lead, Brian Griese led his final drive in a Michigan uniform.
I'm probably more proud of that drive than any other drive that I had in my career at Michigan. It was about making smart decisions. It was about making the tough yard, and all 11 guys on offense were on board with that, and we got it done. But I felt like we had won the game, so I started to think about my mom and my dad up there and what this meant to me. I thought about my brother and the conversation that we had to come back for my 5th year. All the emotion just kind of flooded me at that point.
Despite leaving Washington State 93 yards to cover in 16 seconds, the Wolverines couldn't savor victory quite yet.
And
a receiver pushed me in the back. You can see the official reach for his flag and then doesn't throw it. So it gives them another shot.
I'm thinking, you mean to tell me we're about to lose a game on this one play? Coach Carr called me to the sideline and said, keep those guys together. Let's get out of here. We need you guys for a few more seconds.
The Cougars reached the Michigan 26 with 2 seconds to go and a possible chance at ruining perfection. It was not to be.
2 seconds. Leaf gets the snap, throws the ball in the ground.
The time is over. Game is over.
Michigan has realized its destiny and won the national championship in the Rose Bowl, beating Washington State 21-16.
Well, I know there was some controversy near the end where Leaf was trying to score that game-winning touchdown. I'm not sure if he spiked the ball in time to stop the clock, though.
We celebrated, but it took us a while because I can remember being almost at midfield. I didn't know what had happened.
It was one of those moments that you dream about, and I just remember that blue, that amazing blue, bleeding onto the field.
The MVP in today's ball game. You want to know who it is? I'm standing alongside his proud daddy, quarterback Brian Greasy of Michigan. What a year he's had. Changed his whole life. You got lost, Pete. I don't blame you. You want to cry, you go ahead. I'll hold you up. That's Shea, Greasy. You guys got me crying.
Oh, Nelly. You want to know who the MVP is? I'm standing right next to his proud daddy. You know, that was special, you know. I'd done well the whole year, and this was the end of the season, the end of the game, and yeah, it was special.
People still talk to me to this day that they were watching that game with their son and could just relate to my dad and his emotion, and that's not my dad. Anybody that knows him would say that he's not the emotional kind of guy, and for him to do that on national TV and the biggest stage, I think really was a really nice way to end my career. Before I was going into the press conference, I saw my dad in the hallway, and I was still dressed in my... He had come down from the booth.
I just went over and gave him a big hug. There wasn't anything to be said. I was proud of him, and he was proud to be my son and all the difficulties that we had gone through.
I want to tell you, first of all, how proud of him.
If you ask anybody from that team, your coach is your guy, and you want to hear what he has to say, and Lloyd was particularly good at that.
You embraced the pressure. You answered every challenge. You answered every question. You have left a wonderful legacy for every team that ever follows you. You just won the national championship.
It was unbelievable to sit there and know we just won a national championship. We just won a national championship. It's a childhood dream.
You know, last year we sent some guys out without a Rose Bowl ring. This year we're sending those fifth-year guys out. Those guys won't be coming back this year. We're sending them out with a national championship.
That axiom that Coach Schembechler always used, that those who stay will be champions. For my senior class, that fifth-year class, and there were about 6 of us, that stayed all 5 years, and then for us to have our last game in the Rose Bowl, it meant everything to us. It was the most special game I've ever played in.
Let's go! 1, 2, you know what to do! Hail to the victors valiant! Hail to the conquering heroes! Hail to Michigan, the leaders in bad! Hail to the victors valiant! Hail to the conquering heroes! Hail to Michigan, the champions of the way!
For the entire season, everybody in America, especially the last month or so, wanted Michigan and Nebraska to meet. I'm the only person who could pull it off.
Michigan was locked into going to the Rose Bowl as the #1 team that year. Of course, pre-BCS, teams and bowls had locked-in agreements. The Big Ten, Pac-10, of course, were going to go to the Rose Bowl. Had this, of course, taken place a year later, we would have had Nebraska facing off against Michigan in the BCS title game.
I was covering the Orange Bowl that year, and I remember in Miami, after the Rose Bowl game, Nebraska came into that game knowing that if they just obliterated Tennessee, they would have an excellent chance at getting a national championship.
Nebraska did just that, throttling Tennessee 42-17 and creating a split title. The writers giving Michigan the national crown, the coaches giving Nebraska the top spot.
I wish the BCS was a year earlier, but we could have had a shot at playing, Nebraska, and made the best man win.
At the end of the day, it didn't diminish what we accomplished one bit. Not in our mind, not in history. We consider ourselves the national champions.
And the consensus National Coach of the Year, the head coach, Lloyd Carr.
Lloyd winning that championship this year pretty much said to everyone, you know what? This program can win a national championship using the same principles that Bo had established years ago.
I think it legitimized Lloyd Carr. Remember, Bo Schembechler, for all his accolades and all his greatness, never won a national championship. This was the Big Ten's first national championship since 1968, so it definitely elevated Lloyd Carr a whole nother level, and I think made him one of Michigan's all-time great coaches.
If you win the national championship, you don't have to explain anything. And in the final analysis, we had great players. This was a great football team.
They say that the greatest teams always have the greatest leaders, and it's true. This group of seniors led this team through the most difficult season, the most difficult schedule, and to the summit of college football.
31 players from that team ended up going to the NFL. 31 players. That's more than a third of your scholarship players. That is a loaded team.
The 1997 Wolverine team gave Michigan a national championship and continues to give to the university in other ways, with Lloyd Carr and three of his brightest stars spearheading fundraising efforts for Mott Children's Hospital.
Woodson, Greasy, and Hutchinson, they're making a difference. Not as football players. They don't need to. The most valuable thing you've got is your time. And yet they give of their time, their money too, but give of their time to help others less fortunate.
For us in '97, the chemistry certainly had a lot to do with, Coach Carr and his inspiration and leadership, but the family feel for us that year, a lot of that stemmed from our relationship with the Children's Hospital at Michigan.
The Greasy Hutchinson Woodson golf tournament raised a lot of money, and I think that speaks to the feeling that people had for these guys.
No matter what happens at Michigan from here on out, they'll always remember the champions. So what that team means to me is everything, because it's a legacy. It's a legacy that we all built and a legacy that we'll all leave behind as one of the great teams here at Michigan.
I think about a team that stuck together through and through. I think about a team that Coach Carr coached perfectly. And I think about a team that will always be national champions of 1997.
So they gave us a pickaxe, and everyone's looking at it like, if someone gets mad at each other, we could do some damage to one another.
I remember thinking when he handed out the pickaxe, it was like, oh no, is somebody gonna, hit somebody in the locker room, put it in somebody's leg or something? How many injuries are we gonna have from these pickaxe guys messing around the locker room?
I have my pickaxe. It's my weapon in case any Ohio State Buckeyes come to my yard. So I keep it right next to my bed.